Greetings to another video. Today I'm with Phil Burt, bike fitter extraordinaire, and we're going to be covering the topic of, is it a bike fad or is it a bike fit? Because there's loads of different things out and we're just going to determine whether or not you should invest in them for your bike or if it's just kind of a fad that's not actually going to help your bike fit. The first one is integrated bars.
Integrated front end, mainly for aerodynamic purposes. That's what the bike industry will tell you. You know, look great, look fantastic. You know, some sleek carbon fibre all joined together. Take away the joins of your stem to your handlebars and so on and so forth, and they can be amazing. But my caveat and my warning would be: make sure you've got that sizing right before you buy it. We see quite a lot of people come into the clinic and bought their dream bike and it's come with an integrated front end, and if it's the wrong handlebar width or the wrong stem length, they have to change the whole thing, and I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds, you know, and it's a big thing that they have to make a decision on. So I would say that it's not a fad, but it can really affect your fit, you know, in terms of that. So, you know, if you don't know what your optimal handlebar width and stem is, some people might be really certain about that. I've ridden this forever, I go ahead, get it. But if you're not certain or you've got new bikings coming up, then yeah, I would say we see a lot of disappointed people go, well, that's too wide for your, you know, and it can.
And you can't change them. I actually think Canyon, theirs do. Have you seen those?
Yes.
They do actually get wide. So I think that's a really...
No, that is a good point. We had a guy in actually today with that, and it actually, they have some adjustability, and I think...
But not in stem.
Not in stem and width, and that's... I think that some companies are really listening to the problematic, like, you know, optimal aero position, for example, is going to be about your fit, not necessarily the kit itself, you know, and that's really, really important. So it's just like, you know, the old... What our dads would always tell us, you know, measure twice, cut once. If you're going to get an integrated, use that phrase. I'm going to make sure I'm absolute. This is what I ride. It's a 40 centimeter wide with 100 stem, and that fits that bike that you're going to put it on. You know.
Perfect.
All right.
So it can work, but just be very, very careful before you actually drop a load of money on it. That it is the right width and stem length. Second one is a personal. I hate this. I really hate them on bikes, and I've actually sold a bike because it had this, and that is an offset seat post.
I'm led to believe offset seat posts exist because they offer more compliance than an inline seat post. But one thing I can tell you is that I've run up to the same issues that you have with some people. I just cannot get the saddle far enough forward to get them, you know, comfortable on the bike, and therefore then you're starting to make a compromise where drawing them back at the front, but really that isn't the problem, you know. So I think with offset seat posts is fine, but just make sure if you're buying it's on a new bike that you're buying, you haven't tried one, but get a circular one if you can do, because the people who buy non-circular ones, i.e. proprietary, you know, pillar alloys is different, it's asymmetrical shapes and stuff, you're then completely locked into whatever they offer. And some of them don't even offer an in such people. So there's certain bike brands, won't name and shame them, that I know I cannot get certain people in the right position on because they only offer an offset seat post and it's a non-circular one. Yeah, so
there's so many that I don't think many of the newer brands now, I've not seen them. That's why I had that wind space, because that is circular and it is actually in line. But I actually sold, I will name them because I love this bike. It's a giant bike, and I ended up selling it. It was a carbon bike, and it had it was called a D fuse, so it was a D shape, and you just could not get an inline one, and I just couldn't fit on the bike. So I was just like, well, I can't fit on the bike comfortably, so I'm gonna have to sell it, which just seemed really sad. I like the bike,
I think it's really compounded by the popularity of short nose saddles now as well. So as you think about it, with a short nose saddle, you might argue that a longer saddle you might be able to get an off-seat seat post to work, you know, but it still will be a bit of a compromise. So yeah, it's just fine for some people, but it's something definitely to be aware of. It's like, if that's coming with an offset seat post, can I get my seat far enough forward on it before you purchase?
So is it a fad or a fit? I think it's a fad. I just don't like them.
I don't as a fitter, because it comes from that point of view. I think from your thing, we're saying fad.
We can say fad. We can say fad. It's a fad. I think it's a fad. Next one is another thing that I'm not a huge fan of, and that's Aero Bikes.
Well, I don't mind Aero Bikes, but I think people should...
Hang on 1 second. I'm just going to change this. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Ah, that's better. Look at that. We've got like symmetry now.
Okay. I think Aero Bikes are fine, but You've got to remember how much money the bike industry has in terms of marketing and sales and selling you things. So question you should always ask yourself is, do I think this is the truth, or is it just marketing bullshit, right? So the bike is about 9 to 10% of the frontal area. In other words, the thing that you're pushing in the wind, right? And here's the clue, you're 90 to 91% of it, okay? So an aero bike is fine, but it's such a small percentage of the overall problem. That's why skin suits work. Really good skin suit really works, because it covers up the big thing that's in the air. So if we go back to first principles, I would always invest, the most aero bike, if you ask me, is the one with the most adjustability, because it allows you to find your most aero position and realise that for you. Does that make sense? So the actual aerodynamics of the bike, I love them. I work with them, British cycling teams. They look beautiful, but they are the icing on the cake. So once you decided, if money was no object and you worked out your most brilliant aero position because you had all the adjustability in the world, some of the time trial sort of triathlon bikes now, like the Svello P, whatever it is now, they have amazing adjustability. Those companies are listening because they realise clients don't want to be locked into one position. They want to find out what works for them, you know? Yeah. So I reckon aero bikes, the most aero bikes are the most adjustable, not necessarily the most aerodynamic.
Okay, that makes sense.
Give me an infinitely adjustable bike, for aero, and I'll make them more aero than someone with no adjustability on an aero bike. There we go. Make sense?
That does make sense. Because actually what you're saying then is also, you'll be better off spending that money on gym sessions, making yourself more aero and more flexible, than spending the money on an aero bike that is uncomfortable to sit on.
Well, if you're 90% of the aero position, losing weight with mass or size, absolutely. What we're saying is, what's the biggest factor here? And it's that you are the big aerodynamic thing on the bike, not the bike itself. When all things are equal, like these lot up here, when the Tour de France, an aero bike makes a difference because you've got people who are at this level. Yeah. Most people haven't found out this yet, though, so that adjustability is more important to me than someone coming in saying, I've got this aero bike, I want to be aero, and all of a sudden, for example, it's an integrated front end to be aero and you can't adjust it.
Oh, I see what you mean. So would you say you'll be able to get more aero on like a regular old school road bike than necessarily an aero bike?
Ordinary people, yes, could discover their most aerodynamic position
on a regular bike.
On a regular bike that has all the usual points of adjustment and easy to change. And often, some really smart people come in here and they'll explore new position or aero position on the old bike kit because it's dead cheap to do, like changing handlebars, things like this. And then they commit to the big sale of, right, I know what it is now. I'll go and get that. It makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
So is it a fad or a fit?
Aero bikes. A fad for us.
A fad for the regular people.
I think the percentage difference it makes is so little compared to, if I can give you 30 watts more power by putting your saddle in the right place, you'll go through the air much faster than what 9%, whatever an aero bike reduces your drag by.
So just a little story. Can I say this? So Phil has worked with Bradley Wiggins, and what you were saying is, well, tell them the story.
So there's a great picture of Bradley. He's in the yellow jersey on his time trial bike doing the time trial, and if you look in that picture, it's beautiful, and the whole carbon fibre bike, and then there are alloy or steel aluminium build-ups underneath the underneath the arm pads, right? And the reason why they're in there is that Bradley couldn't get his ideal position, because if they were made of carbon fibre, there can only be 3 stack heights. But his stack height was in between that, so we had to build special alloy ones which weigh 2 or 3 grams more. And we worked out that it was worth the more weight, because if it was much more aero, then we got all the savings back of the aero outweighed the weight. And I love that in the example of, like, hold on a minute, we're always obsessed with carbon fibre, but it illustrates the difference that position makes, the right position makes above necessary saving weight.
And I see this so much in my club, in gravel riding. You bored?
No.
Just looking at it. And that is turned in hoods.
Well, I think turned in hoods have come from, like, the advent of gravel bikes, haven't they, and turned in. And I don't mind them per se, but I have found people who adopted that on their road bikes, that we all say, and they see that. And I think this is one of these classic things where it's a bit like, when Lance Armstrong phoned out, everyone said, I've got to ride at 100 RPM, and cadence is so specific, and it worked for him, and everyone else was trying to copy him. And I guarantee you some people went far worse because they were trying to spin too fast for them, So it's one of those things where you copy things, isn't it? And so I think the turned-in handlebars, what they do is, I can tell you about the problems I see, where it basically loads up a lot more on the femur eminence here, and I see people get numb hands a lot quicker. So I think if you want to do it, that's fair enough. I don't know if it's more aero. I think some people have worked out maybe it is sometimes. I think that would be very individual, because some people, they turn the handlebars in, their shoulders will pop out, that's less aero. Some other people turn in, and for an even pull, you can get really down it. So again, see, one rule doesn't work for everyone. Just by doing it doesn't make sense, does it? But if you look at it, you'd load in, and we've experienced and helped some people out where we've just I like a hood in a neutral position because it meets your hand.
And you've got so many more positions.
So I think Shimano takes like 16 different ever so slight hand positions. So that's why we spend all our time taking people off the bars and getting them on the hoods and saying that's where we want you to be. You don't have to be there. You can ride you, but you might. So this slight in turn thing, I just wonder. I think it is a bit of a fad, and I think you might find it goes the other way maybe at some point.
Unless it's what works for you, then go for it. But
absolutely, exactly. I'm saying if it causes no discomfort, and you're absolutely fine. Some people might find more comfortable.
Yeah.
It's just, I think back to the rule. It's not necessary for everyone.
No.
So you don't have to do it.
No.
Just because you see it and it's new and it's like, you can maybe try it out. But I think it, for me, takes away some of the degrees of freedom that you've got at that front end and locks you into a certain position.
Perfect.
All right.
Right, and then the last one.
Which was?
This is my favourite one. I love this one. You know this one. And that is short cranks. I mean, not that short, but short. Well, when we talk about short cranks, we're talking about maybe like 165, right?
Yeah.
Or shorter than what you're currently riding.
Yes.
Tell us the story. Tell us everything you think about.
Well, there must be broad appearance. Well, I've been very lucky to know for a long time that shortening your crank length in sub-max cycling, which is what most of us do. Maximal cycling is more like very low cadence, high power on track. Sub-max cycling, decreasing your crank length doesn't affect power; it just changes your gearing. So that's a massive plus for a lot of people, because if you can manipulate crank length, you can get people in better positions, you can decrease their knee pain, you can get rid of someone's saddle sore because the peaks of pressure go down. There's so many things.
Decrease hip pain, because that's what I had. I got short cranks and I was getting really sore, tight hips.
Yeah. You're long in the leg and short in the torso.
Yeah.
Short cranks make those people who have long legs, short torsos, or they're way around short, they're game changing because they can get onto a stock frame. You don't need a bespoke bike, So crank length, and then the reason why I think you bring it up as a fad is that now we all know that Podjar rides 165. I'm telling my clients to go and get 165. No one can find 165 because everyone's dived into it.
Yeah,
and this is a classic.
He's like made it such a popular, amazing thing.
Yeah, because he's like, an outstanding rider, and I'm really glad he's on them, but it just makes me wonder whether the herd mentality of cyclists has gone, he's on,
that's what I need to get.
And all I would say with that is, if you do that, make that change, make sure you change the other things that need to change with it. For example, when you shorten crank length, if your saddle height is correct, then bottom dead center just got closer, yeah? So I always raise saddle height by the same amount, correct setback. It's important that, because otherwise you fix one thing and lose another. If you ask me what I love about short cranks, I'm a physiotherapist. I think the hip joint is the first thing that loses mobility as we get older. And if your hips are happy in cycling, in other words, they're open and not closing up loads, and that relates to these lot when they're in stupid aero positions, but it relates to us when we're riding home. As you know, I've got a bad hip. If I ride 172.5, I'm dragging my leg around like it's nothing. If I ride 170, I can't even feel it. So it's not a fad, it's a fit. But it's a bit of a fad at the moment. It is a bit of a fad,
but you have been talking about this for years. I've had 165 on mine and I'm 5'10", maybe 5'9", 5'10". So I'm tall, and everyone's like, does it not affect the power? It's not. And what you've said all along is there are no negative impacts of having a shorter crank. There's only positives to have. There's
a very, very small percentage of people, if they've ridden a long crank for a long time, they just get very used to it and they miss it. But honestly, for 95% of people, it's a no-brainer, and
it's helped my hips and hip pain when I've been on hilly rides. And the reason being is if you have a shorter crank, it means that your leg isn't coming up as high on the rotation.
Yeah, you're not closing your hip at the top.
So it's not closing at the top, which just means it makes it a lot more comfortable. So, cranks, fad or fit?
Fit. Definitely
fit. Even though it's a bit of a fad now, definitely a fit. I think that's everything. If you've got any other questions or any other fads or fits that you want Phil to answer, leave them in the comments. And thank you as always. I'll leave Phil's details below if you want to come and have a bike fit with him, or if you've got any questions for him. I'll leave all the details there. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
You too. All right, we're going to do another video now, so another video coming soon. Bye.